Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Lynn, if you're joining us for the first time here at Yoga Story Express. And on the podcast, we interview folks from the studio, from different walks of life. We're going to start branching out to people who are outside of our area and outside of our studio to tell their yoga story or some other topics that have to do with yoga and their life. And today we've got Gita Chakrabarti here. Gita is the founder and CEO of Gut BFF, a different type of granola with 20 plants to help your gut biome. She has graduated from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, and she was a VP in merchandising at both Sam's Club and Walmart. Welcome, Gita, to the podcast.
Thank you, Lynn.
Gita is also one of the ones that we call OG here at Yoga Story. She's been coming for forever. Did we ever figure out how many years?
Yep, since 2011.
Since 2011, so 15 years. Wow, that's
a long time.
That's a long time. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Orangeburg, South Carolina. My parents were from India, as you can tell from my name and how I look, probably. But yeah, I'm from South Carolina, and I lived there until I was 21.
So what brought you eventually to this area?
I went many places after South Carolina on the way to Northwest Arkansas, but what brought me specifically to this area was I started working with Walmart in New York City. We had an office there a long time ago, and when that office closed, we were offered the option to move to Northwest Arkansas, and that's what brought us down here, and we've stayed since.
So South Carolina, New York, Chicago, what did you think of Northwest Arkansas when they were like, you're going to have to go to Bentonville? What did you think about that?
Okay, so very honestly, at the time, I thought we were trying very hard to have a baby, which motivated the decision to move when our office closed in New York. And we thought, it would be a really good place with an easy life to raise children where we would both still have good jobs. It was a very polarizing decision, to be honest, at that time. I don't think it's so polarizing anymore. But really, it was here are wonderful things you're giving up in New York City, and here are wonderful things you're getting in Northwest Arkansas, and both don't have what the other has. So
Yeah.
you have to be comfortable with that compromise. And, since Northwest Arkansas has changed so very much, and we have grown to love it, but in the beginning, it was really about it's a good place to have children.
Yeah, yeah. I bet that was a huge adjustment though for you guys. So how long has yoga been part of your life?
So what triggered yoga being such a big part of my life was I had a terrible whitewater rafting accident when I was 25. That was unexpected. It actually took me a long time to even realize I was injured. And when I did, I was left with a small fracture in my hip and a slightly rotated pelvis on one side of my body. And rather than get surgery, I discovered yoga was a way I could stretch things out and I could cope. And all the things that were kinked up and tight and unhappy that were referring, I guess, into mental stress and mental unhappiness, I could smooth my body out with yoga, which would smooth my mind out. So yoga became something that I could not live without, and I had to have to manage pain and injury. So it's a good thing because yoga has so many other collateral benefits, but that's how yoga became part of my life.
So why did you pick yoga as opposed to some other modality for the injury?
I tried physical therapy, it didn't work very well. I tried going to a chiropractor. It would work for a period of time. And stretching was the best part, and I could no longer do very high impact types of activities. So I had played soccer before. I used to love to run before. It was very rough and tumble, and I loved sports, and I couldn't do high impact anymore. And so I think I was dealing with the mental side of that as well. And yoga was very calming, and it stretched out all those things that were not right in my body and took away a lot of that emotional and physical stress.
Yeah. So why do you practice yoga now? It's been a while since your injury. So why do you continue to 15 years?
Yep, 15 years. Well, my body still is out of alignment. So I do need it on a maintenance level. But honestly, the biggest thing I get from yoga is I love adventure as a person. I love change as a person. And with that change comes joy and stress. And, for many years, yoga was a way to calm down from a very stressful job, to reset my energy, to come back into being present. So I think the stress aspect and stress management and calming down your nervous system aspect of it in yoga has been a really, really wonderful thing for me to balance. I think all the yang energy that I naturally carry as a person.
Yep.
The yin brings it back down. And, I would always say, like, the weekend was my weekend detox. So I wouldn't always make it to yoga consistently during the week, maybe a couple of days. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I could bring myself way down and I could stay down. And I had a lot of things to do that, like, not really spending time on email, not consciously not thinking about work. Cooking, I love food. I love messing around with food. It's always been my super hobby. Now it's my job because it's my super hobby. And you hope that your super hobby gets to be your job at some point in your life. So those are the things that, I would do. But yoga was a big part of chilling out over the weekend, staying chilled out so that Monday I could go back to work and then, my stress cup could fill back up again over the week. Then I could bring it back down. So I think yoga is just a way I cope with life, and it has been for many years.
That's great. I like that you mentioned, what you get from the asana practice. So if you're not real familiar with the terminology of yoga, asana are the poses. So those are the things we might see on social media, people doing handstands, warrior two, tree pose, the visual part of yoga, the part that we do in the physical body, but then also what you get out of it outside of the asana, because I think people don't always understand that yoga isn't just stretching. First of all, it can be very challenging.
Yeah.
It's no matter how strong I get weightlifting. Today I took Chris's class and was completely humbled by still how challenging yoga is, but what it can do when we do connect the body to what's going on inside of our brain, that they're not two separate parts. They're whole, they're union, right? That's what yoga means. So you've got a unique perspective, born in the United States, but parents are from India. So what is your perspective as an Indian woman in Western yoga, in this perspective of you with what we've done with yoga in America?
Well, I think what is good about yoga is it's got people moving, stretching, working on their flexibility, which is really important as you age. There's hundreds of studies that say that your inputs on the path to your last 10 years of life dictate whether your last 10 years of life are wonderful or simply horrible. And so I think the movement, the limberness, the stretching that people get, the breathing and the connection of breathing to movement is naturally calming, whether you are linking yoga to a higher cause or not in any way. So I think that is really good in our modern life where we are connected to devices, we are stressed out, we are running from thing to thing. I think even the Western adaptation of yoga is really great for people. Now, when yoga was being developed in India, thousands of years ago, did people think you might be on the Upper East Side with somebody blaring rock, doing like hardcore poses, yelling cuss words? Probably not. Probably not the vision. But yoga, even in its Western interpretation, has an incredibly wide range. And what I do like about it is you can find what suits you. Like energetically, sometimes I want Lynn's class. I want a lot of movement. I want sweating. And sometimes I want to breathe and to go really deep. And both are exercise and both have benefits. So I think that Western yoga is just so broad because there are so many kinds. And, we live in Northwest Arkansas where there are plenty of kinds of yoga. If you are in a bigger city where there are even more combinations and permutations of what that people, you'll find even more varieties. Like when I lived in New York, I used to have this little yoga pass book that was like $30 to get to try different studios. And the types of yoga that I tried and I went to, for example, you have Kundalini.
Right.
What a different kind of yoga than like a hot power flow. So I think you can find across all the different options that are available in the West and Western countries something that suits you and works for you. So while it's different here, I think the world is so digitally open that there are things happening in America that are going back and influencing India, and things that are happening in India that are influencing America. And I wouldn't be surprised if you went and found like a hot power flow class in Mumbai right now, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just all kind of
Certainly in
in flux.
Rishikesh.
Yeah, you would find it, right?
Mhm.
And that idea couldn't even have existed like 100 years ago, but now because we exchange information and learn from each other as a world, I think things flow and, you know, things adapt off of each other.
Yeah, and one of the things I like to discuss with guests are some of the controversial topics or the topics that we deem controversial in the social media world. 'Cause I have to be pretty plugged into social media with what I do as an individual and as a business owner, which I have a love-hate relationship with.
Yeah,
But
me too.
it's so funny that these, right, because you've got to promote
Yeah.
your gut BFF. She told her wear the shirt. But then also there's that downside of being plugged into social media. But I noticed that there's a lot of pendulum swinging when it comes to uh, exercise or movement that becomes trendy.
Yeah,
So
for
you've got
sure.
like Pilates people that will fight of like what true Pilates is versus, you know, what the reformer is or what these classes now are on the reformers. And then yoga, in the yoga world, there are people who talk about that yoga needs to be more traditional, and yoga needs to be back to the roots of yoga. That asana, you know, in the sutras just means moving the body or you know, a seated position. Anyway,
Yeah.
so at you as my guest, what is your opinion on whether or not yoga as a practice should evolve with the culture or stay more true to the original, like this is how it was packaged originally?
Yeah, I think if it evolves with the culture, more people are going to do it.
Mm.
And so, look, people need movement, people need good food, people need sleep, they need to go outdoors. So anything that like aids these things is a positive.
Hmm.
And then there will always be yoga that pockets that didn't evolve with the culture. And if you are that person and you need that and you're not able to find that, even where you live, let's say you live in some tiny town, like where I grew up in South Carolina. Well, guess what? There's YouTube these days.
Hmm.
You know, so I love that we live in a world where you can find the things that fit you. But if yoga evolves and it retains some essence of where it started, but it benefits broad groups of people because it is culturally relevant, I don't see that as a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that's how I would answer it as well. I know I see people saying we shouldn't do core in yoga.
Yeah.
There's not core work in yoga. I'm like, well, what do you call boat pose?
Yeah.
What do you call navasana? But then also considering that yoga was originally done with people who were working out in the fields, or they had a different lifestyle than a lot of Americans have, which is sitting on a screen,
Yeah.
on a computer, on a phone, where core work is incredibly important
Yeah.
to complement a yoga practice, because some of those poses, if you don't have your core engaged, you are definitely going to hurt yourself. So I always go, now tell me the reasoning why we shouldn't have core work in yoga.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you wouldn't do it in a yen class, but you know. Uh, so the next topic, like you've recently launched your food business, Gut BFF. So do you feel like you use your yoga practice in your business? Obviously not the asana portion of it, but
Yeah.
the outside of asana portion in your business.
Yeah. I think that once you start to do yoga, you become aware of your body. And I think that's also part of growing up and living is you become aware of your body, hopefully aware of your emotions, aware of your physicality. And so I will say, you know, last year in April, this was an idea and it was a lot of fun because ideas are fun. And, you know, I had a nice ride, I'll call it a honeymoon, you know, launching, getting early customers. And then at the beginning of this year, it got really hard because I had to learn how to market, and I am not a born digital marketer.
Mm.
I'm good at product development based on my previous experience and seeing trends. And, you know, I've got a certain set of skills that made me confident enough that I could do this, but it got really hard at that time of the year. And I would feel myself, and I have felt this for many years, I would feel myself gripping weird parts of your body. This is how stress attacks your body. I would grip my toes. I would grip at my ovaries. I think this might have had one of the reasons I had a hard time getting pregnant. But I carry stress around my reproductive organs. I
Mm,
could feel it. Could feel it at night.
yeah.
I am gripping. And I could use all of those tools I had learned in yoga to calm down. Like if I can't sleep at night, legs up the wall, use an acupressure mat, roll up a blanket and actually lay face down with that blanket against your ovaries and your reproductive
Hmm.
organs. Do alternate nostril breathing,
Yeah.
which forces you to calm down if you do it, if you just make yourself do it. So I use yoga as a tool to live life and deal with the stresses of life because I welcome those stresses. It's my personality that's not going to go away, but then I counteract them. And so I notice, and I say this to some of your instructors, like I'll be like, Amanda, Chris, you energetically just changed me. I walked in with this raggedy, tired, angry energy, feeling kind of sad and disillusioned. And now I feel good and I'm walking out feeling good. And it just took an hour to do that.
Hmm.
Right. So I just don't see yoga ever going away from me. And I think that's a good thing because we need it. Yes, there's many other kinds of exercise, but yoga does a certain set of things that a lot of other things don't do.
Yeah, and we talk about energy. It's the subtle energy of the body. It's not just input output. It's this energy that's a much deeper discussion, and maybe that should be a good topic later on. But it's a we call it the chakras or the subtle energy of the body. There's lots of other different channels than just the chakras, but doing the practice in a good balanced way where you listen to your body is really great for balancing your energy. So if you were talking to someone who is curious about yoga, but not sure about starting a practice, maybe they're intimidated or they don't know where to start, like what advice would you give them?
I would say go to a beginner class. Um, Listen to your body. Don't do anything that feels uncomfortable. Something I worry about sometimes when I see people doing yoga is they overextend or we're always competing in life. It's our society. So they feel competitive to the people around them. And you can so easily, hurt yourself
Mm.
if you are not easing in and allowing your body to give way to do more and more. And with time, you will be able to do more and more. So I would say come to a class with a good teacher that is at an early level who can you can ask, keep an eye on me and help me do some adjustments if you feel comfortable with that. Tell me what are ways that I can actually protect my body. Like if you can't reach over and touch your toes now, then you shouldn't be trying to do that in yoga without your knees bent.
Mm-hmm.
If you will learn subtle ways to protect your body. And I'm very conscious of it being somebody that lives with, a history of having some injury and misalignment. So I think I would say that it's wonderful. The benefits are incredible. And just learning to breathe through your nose and keeping your mouth shut alone goes a very long way because we pant like puppies through our mouth
Mm-hmm.
most of the time. But ease into it and go slow and don't compete with the person next to you who might have been doing this for 20 years. And over time, you will find you can do more and more. One day I could suddenly do a headstand. One day I could suddenly do a flying crow. It's not that I could do those things the first day that I tried or that I should have tried. So I think listening to your body and allowing it to give way with time, and it will.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're the most unflexible person, you will be able to do more after 3 months and 6 months and a year and then years of a yoga practice. You just have to go slow,
Yep.
and listen because you can injure yourself. And what I like also, this is probably a good Western evolution of yoga, is people are conscious of common injuries. And I've noticed like in the last 5 years, shoulder stand isn't encouraged unless you really know what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
because you can mess up your neck and you
Yeah.
can mess up your shoulders. And so I think just easing into it and seeing how you feel afterwards, really noticing how you feel afterwards is good motivation of what might bring you back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Gita's got her company Gut BFF that you can find online, gutbff.com.
Yep.
You ship?
Yep, we do.
So you
All over
can
America.
order online. She is in stores locally at Allen's.
Mhm.
We would name them off for
Yep,
me.
Allen's, Ozark Natural Foods, the Mercantiles, the Meteor, a bunch of places on Fair. You know, I was at the farmers market this weekend. I'm in the Bentonville Farmers Market, by the way. And then the vendor in the booth next to me said, "Oh my gosh, that's your granola." And I said, "Yes." They said, "We live in Tulsa, and our house guest just gave us that."
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I was just like, wild. So yes, you can find us lots of places.
So you can order directly from the website and she'll ship it to you. And it's a wonderful product. My favorite is the raisin, the honey raisin. That is my absolute favorite because I love raisins. But
Yeah.
and the chocolate peanut butter is a close second. So definitely check her out. I'll put her link to her website and her socials in the show notes. And thank you so much, Gita, for joining us today here at Yoga Story Express.
Thank you. Thanks for being part of my yoga journey for the last decade at least.